let's just jump right into the news. The first bit of news is something that everyone has been talking about, I believe so. So hey, why not join on this? Linda Hamilton will return to the Terminator franchise. James Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger are both involved. James Cameron's going to produce the reboot, which I've heard it scraps everything from the reboots that they've been trying to do, but keeps the first two Terminators.
So it's kind of like what they're doing with Halloween.
Sure, I will take your word for that.
Okay, so Halloween, Danny McBride and I forget who his writing partner is in it. They're making a new Halloween movie, and they're bringing back Jamie Lee Curtis. Now, the Halloween films famously did the first two films that revolved around Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. Then the third Halloween veered completely away. It was kind of like what they wanted to do was just make it an anthology series and not have it be about the same characters over and over again. So that was The Witch, which was about nothing to do with Myers, nothing to do with the family and extensive stuff and everything. It was a very weird film, very dated, but a lot of people kind of love it because of that. And then they went back to Michael Myers in episodes 4 and 5 and 6 with a cousin or an extended sister. I don't remember exactly what it was. That's the ones that have Danielle Harris in them when she was a little girl, although they ditched her for the 6th one and they fucking killed the character stupidly. But then 7 was Halloween H2O. They brought back Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, had her son there. It was kind of Scream-esque, Dawson's Creek-ish, and then they killed her character in the very last one of the series at the very beginning, and just kind of like, and then we're just going to let Michael Myers run around like Jason does and just go town to town like he's on tour like Tiffany at the mall. But now they're going backwards and they're saying, hey, fuck everything from Halloween 3 on. We're gonna bring back Laurie Strode as a fucking yogurt eating senior citizen, which she is, which is fine. She's still a very attractive woman, and we're gonna do the Michael Myers Laurie Strode thing again, except not with Josh Hartnett as her son and everything else. I don't know, like the way they killed Laurie was lame. Halloween H2O was actually a pretty solid flick, especially for the time that it came out.
Yeah,
but it seems like what these movies are doing, and they talked about doing this with the Alien franchise too, with Sigourney Weaver. Going back and kind of like canceling out from Alien 3 on, like we're just going to go and we're going to start over again. And like, so we'll have Ripley and maybe we'll have Newt and we'll do these things and stuff. And it's like, God damn it. I love some of these franchises and some of them I'm just like, okay with. Terminator I'm mostly just okay with. And certainly we can see where they all jumped off the track. And it's funny that it always seems to be about the third one. Oh yeah, we'll send Ripley to a prison planet and we'll shave her head and we'll kill off all the characters that survived with her at the end of the last one, except for Bishop will just be a fucking white-blooded stump. And it'll be great. No, it really wasn't great, but it was better than some of the crap that came later. I get the idea of it, but it's so hard and trying of like, we're just going to keep redoing this so we can get you back for that fucking nostalgia hook again. And I certainly love the idea of Linda Hamilton being a part of the Terminator franchise because really it was built around her from the beginning. She just crushed it in Terminator 2. She was amazing. But I didn't hate the idea of doing the younger version of her in the last film that they did, where they had Khaleesi playing her and they started all that shit again. I dug the idea of it, although I haven't seen it in execution and didn't do well. Just like I like Lena Headey playing her in the Sarah Connor Chronicles. It was a pretty good show that was kind of retelling the mythos, but changing things, and it was building on the history that was already there. Terminator gets a pass because it plays with time travel. It plays with altering history and stuff. But it just feels like we're forcing this concept over and over to just keep milking a franchise because it's a franchise and because we're so insistent that it's still going to be somehow bankable, and yet they don't often wind up being bankable.
Yeah. So the thing that I'm worried about with this, you've basically hit it on the head, but they've talked about this with every movie since Terminator 3. That this is going to be a reboot of the franchise. It's going to be a reboot of the franchise. So what's going to be the difference now? Like, honestly, just because you have James Cameron, producing it and helping, and him and Tim Miller writing it, in parts, and planning out a trilogy. That's warning number one for me that this movie is probably going to suck. And I get, James Cameron is a really good filmmaker. He is one of the best filmmakers out there. But to say his shit doesn't stink is reaching a little bit.
Yeah, we say that James Cameron is one of the best filmmakers out there, and certainly he's made giantly successful films. But who do you know that is excited and or interested in the Avatar sequels? The 4+ movies that he said he's going to make now from that film. Who do you know that has been talking about James Cameron anything since Avatar? That was 2009. Gotten producer credit and stuff like that. Like before that, he did the Dark Angel TV series, which was 2002. So we haven't seen Cameron in a long time. We haven't seen Cameron in his glory days for going on 15 years now, maybe closer to 20 if you go by Titanic, which was 2007. So to say that, oh, it's James Cameron and he's great. Well, he was great, but remember Indiana Jones 4? I don't, because I won't fucking watch it. But that was getting the gang back together. That was like, how can this fucking not nail? Because it's Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, and we love Indiana Jones. We absolutely did. Certainly beloved from the original trilogy. But you plug 20 years onto that, and it's a different fucking story. Because those filmmakers, I don't want to say that they're not still relevant, but in some ways have shown that their relevance has faded, or that their skills now we can pick them apart easier. Maybe if you want to be really critical, which a lot of people are. Yeah. Lucas, obviously, we lost a lot of love for him with the prequels, but he's done other stuff besides Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and none of those things have done well either. He did that animated film, Strange Magic. He did the one with the war movie. Star Wars, The Force Awakens, had Harrison Ford back in it again, but if it had been about just Han and Chewie, it may have been a tougher film to gather the excitement. They really did rely a lot on the new characters, which I think was great. I think that was important. That's what I wanted to see more of. And while I don't love losing some of the original characters as we did, I didn't need to see that. But I get why they did it. And again, this is not to say that Harrison Ford can't still act, but I'm saying that seeing Harrison Ford at 70 playing characters that he was playing in his 20s and 30s is a very different thing. It's like how, and it's going to be funny because he's doing it anyways. It's like how Kevin Smith said, Jay and Silent Bob are great now, but no one wants to see these fuckers in their 40s doing the same shtick. And realistically, that's true. If Jay and Silent Bob are pushing 50 and standing in front of the fucking Quickie Mart, still trying to sell weed to kids, that's just sad. It doesn't make the same impact that it did. It's not relatable. It's like Peter Parker being in his late 30s, still living with his Aunt May, making him breakfast, make the fucking wheat cakes in the morning. At some point, it just becomes pathetic. These characters need to grow, they need to change, they need to alter, or we need to get new characters, and we need to get new stories. And so at a point, I worry that things like Terminator have served its fucking time, man.
Yeah. I think that's sort of where we're both getting at, because Beats pointing out, that George Lucas was not a good director.
But there was a point in time when he was the most beloved director out there.
Yeah. And I look at this, honestly, like, this is a great idea. What I love more is that this is not James Cameron directing. James Cameron is only going to produce this. And I like the idea that from what it sounds like, Linda Hamilton is going to be the star of this. It's going to be, one of the main characters in here. And it is going to be James Cameron trying to get the aged female. This is something, actually, from watching Electric Playground on YouTube, they did the rundown today and they were talking about this. And, James Cameron had a quote saying that, we have the aged male action stars, your Qui-Gon Jinn, I'm blanking on his name.
Liam Neeson, who just recently said he's not going to do action movies anymore.
Yeah, and your Arnold Schwarzeneggers, your Sylvester Stallones, everyone from the Expendables, basically, that can do these movies now where it's like, oh, the aged man is taking on, something. We're getting that with that Jackie Chan movie where he's basically going like, what happened to my daughter, and all that stuff throughout the whole movie, and then he does kung fu. But
I just want to point out, Linda Hamilton is 60, which is not a far cry for where I am. I'm turning 46 this year. Helen Mirren is 72. Now, it's been a few years, but Helen Mirren was in the Red movies not too long ago. Helen Mirren is a strikingly beautiful woman at 72 and held very much her own in those movies against some people who are also not spry youths, but all were completely believable and great in an action film between Bruce Willis and Morgan Freeman, and was it Bruce Dern in those? I don't remember exactly. No, John Malkovich. Fucking Malkovich, man. And very fun and everything. And not just those films, but certainly in a lot of things. It's not to take away from Linda Hamilton at all, and it's not to say Linda Hamilton can't accomplish whatever the fuck she wants to in films, because, like I said, she's great. She's kind of done it all. Or going back to Sigourney Weaver as Ripley. Like, I was completely excited to see Ripley come back to the Alien franchise because it's Sigourney Weaver, and because I know Sigourney Weaver kicks ass. She just did Defenders and was impeccable in that. Was probably the best part of it. Which again shows that Marvel doesn't know what to do with their fucking TV shows when they take the best parts and they fucking hack them away part way through. Still, that's not what I'm saying. It's the idea is these things are precious. Now, I realized today that it's been 15 years since Firefly was on. Since Firefly premiered, it's been 15 years. Firefly does not feel that long ago.
Yeah.
But when you do the math says, no, it was 15 years ago. And that part of me that's like, but why can't we have Firefly back? Because it was so good, and because all those people are still so good, and why can't we do this thing? Except in that thing, we have to give the caveats of some of those actors' roles aren't there anymore. So it won't be the same Firefly. Some of the actors themselves might not be your favorite people in the world anymore, like Baldwin, or whatever Baldwin you are.
Adam.
Fucking you. Yeah, Adam.
By the way, not a Baldwin.
Not a Baldwin, but still a Baldwin. Is the magic of the past overwhelmingly coloring the idea of what this potential thing could be? And that's something that you have to kind of admit to yourself. I don't want to give up on the potential of Firefly coming back, but 15 years later, maybe I should give up on the potential of Firefly coming back. And that ain't fucking Terminator. When Terminator 2 came out in the early goddamn 90s, I just, like, I get it, because obviously there's an audience there for it. There's an audience that's hungering for it. But then it's like, here's this thing we made you. Don't you want to eat it all up? And it's like, you look at it and you go, I'm good. I think I'm going to have some fucking kale. And by kale, I mean a Netflix show, because that doesn't look as ripe as it should.
Yeah, and Beats pointing out, you know, like Futurama, because me and him were talking about this actually before we went on air, that especially with TV, people, when a show gets canceled, clamor for one more show, one more season. Netflix, save it. And I cannot name very many TV shows that have moved networks and been more successful. Like Futurama wasn't. Futurama didn't garner a lot more views when it went from Fox, was canceled for however many years, and then went to Comedy Central.
Jumping networks is one thing. The span of Family Guy being off the air and then coming back wasn't that long, so that it felt like, and for a lot of people, they had just recently really discovered it for the first time in the reruns on Cartoon Network and stuff. X-Files coming back after a 10-year span was interesting. Twin Peaks certainly is right now the toast of the fucking town for what they did on Showtime. Very different from the original series. It kind of doesn't even make sense for you have to watch the original series to get into the current Twin Peaks run. You watch the Fire Walk With Me movie and go from there. But there are cases where it can work. But I think an animated series, for one, it's not as big of a worry. Yeah. Because if you get those voice actors back, the fucking Simpsons has been on forever. All the same voice actors, they're still nailing it. It doesn't matter if it went off the air or not. It's like you go to a new Simpsons, other than the writing being shit, it's still the same goddamn Simpsons as it was from the beginning. It feels the same. The artwork's definitely advanced and technology's changed. South Park.
But that's sort of where I was going with this. Like, you have these shows, and I'm including, because Futurama, because that was with the whole podcast thing, it was like an audio episode of Futurama where they had all the whole cast reading the script, and it was written by some of the writers, and it was aired on Nerdist. And I'm of the mindset where, I was a big Futurama fan when it aired. I didn't really see any of the stuff on Netflix, and I had heard mixed things about it. So it's one of those where I'm like, I would much rather enjoy a show that I loved than watch it be bastardized and turned into a zombie show where it's like, okay, this is the point where this happens. This is the point where Bender says something offensive, so on and so forth. And it's like you could just tell every beat of the episode. Part of the reason why the only show on Fox Sunday nights that I watch that's animated is Bob's Burgers. And even then, that's spotty for me.
Bob's Burgers is just a genius show, but it is modern. It doesn't have to be beholden to what it was before. Arrested Development is one of those things. I haven't watched the 4th season of Arrested Development because I've heard negative things, but it's not really even about that. I would like to go back and watch Arrested Development again. I watched it when it was on the air the first time. I was that guy who watched the show as it aired and went, why aren't more people watching this goddamn show? This is amazing. But Arrested Development comes back on Netflix. And again, not a huge span of time in between, but the show came back very different from how it was. And recapturing that original magic is hard enough as it is. But when you have to change things so drastically because trying to get all those people together to do that project is difficult, it's kind of up in the air as to whether it's going to land or not. Fuller House, I think, did it smart because while they have the people from Full House as a part of it, it focuses on the next generation who are still all people who were from the show originally, but they give them their own vehicle. So if you weren't a Full House fan, I don't know why you'd watch Fuller House, but at least if you watch Fuller House, you can come at it fresh and it doesn't make a difference. And if you watch Fuller House and you watched Full House, you get the progression as to why, but it's not like they're trying to make the fucking dad and 2 uncles all live in the house in their 60s and 70s, and Jesse's still saying things like have mercy, and Joey's still living in the fucking closet like he's goddamn Harry Potter and shit.
You mean the
doesn't
basement?
make them whatever. It makes him less pathetic than it would if we were just trying to recapture this whole thing as it was. Now, I'm not saying that's what they're going to do with Terminator, but it is the worry of at 65 years old, should Indiana Jones still be jumping through jungles and shit fighting Nazis? He can. It was great to watch his dad do it in Indiana Jones 3, but his dad did it differently. He wasn't Indiana Jones. He was Indiana Jones's dad. So the character was different. To see Indiana Jones at that age still trying to do the same kind of things maybe leaves people feeling like I don't buy into it as much. But it's, again, we want this so bad. I want this to be this thing because I love this thing. I want more of this thing. What you're giving me is like that thing, but as I see it now, I realize that I'm never going to get that original thing again.
Yeah.
It's the cherry high. It's the first time you do heroin, and then you come back to heroin a week later, and it's like, God, I wish it was as good as it was the first time. Oh, well, let's put some smack in there. You know, let's mix this shit up and see what else we can do. Let's fucking highball it. I don't know drug terms. I'm very clean. I just, at some point, we have to get over the nostalgia factor. I don't know when that's going to be. I don't know if that will ever be. But at some point, it needs to happen because we've lost the ability to grow new stuff. And even the stuff that I love now is like throwbacks to other things. I loved Stranger Things, but Stranger Things is very reverent to 80s kids movies and 80s horror movies and stuff. And I loved it. And it is a lot like Stranger Things in what it does. It's so good. And it evokes a time that when I was these kids' age at roughly the same period of time. And so I feel a nostalgia from that, even though it's not something that I should feel nostalgia for, because the story is, for me, new. I didn't really read the book, or I know the miniseries and I've seen some of it, but I don't give a crap about it.
Yeah.
But I understand that even that's drawing on the past. And it's like every fucking t-shirt I own is some sort of nostalgia thing disguised as a more modern thing or a mashup of a couple of things together. And I'm watching a Tick series that I've been watching Tick series since it was a cartoon in the 90s and since it was a comic before that. I can't throw stones too hard because they're going to bounce off that glass house and hit me in the fucking face, and I'll deserve it.
No, but see, there's, with some of these examples, there's a difference. Futurama, they have tried and have had less and less and less payoff. Terminator, they have done this and they've had less and less and less payoff. You know, same thing with the Halloween movies. So it quickly becomes one of these things of that the movie executives have to honestly look at when they have all these scripts that come to them. What's really going to give them more money? Something that could be a potential new franchise, or another installment in a franchise that's going to retcon stuff from before these other movies, and is ultimately going to isolate fans, and going to get to the point where the fans are like, fuck it, I give up. That's ultimately where I think we're coming at to this. That's honestly and I am not a Terminator fan at all. Like, I saw Terminator 3. That's it. And it's like, I don't have any ill will for the franchise, but at the same time, I've had franchises that I've loved get bastardized. I've had things that I love get canceled and never come back. Or, since I watch a lot of British TV, get promised American series and then have those get bastardized and get canceled after one season, or just never come back. And you're just like, but this would be so good. The IT crowd would be so good, and stuff like that. And then nothing.
Well, I saw the pilot for the IT crowd in America, and it wasn't that good. And that's having a pure love for the people that were in it, but it didn't land. It was the same the second time.
Was shot for shot the pilot from the British
which
series.
They did with The Office, but The Office managed to evoke reactions, and then they jumped away from that copying after the first episode.
Yeah,
I get it. I totally understand. I can't speak to why I find acceptance of some of these things and why I'm so against it in other ways, because it's a more than a little bit hypocritical.
Yeah,
I totally understand that. If it wasn't the only thing that we were seeing, if everything wasn't trying to be franchised and everything wasn't trying to be remakes, if we were getting a slew of original stuff and it was like, this is a small part of the bigger picture, but the bigger picture is this stuff. And I feel like that's what's gone wrong, is Hollywood is so afraid to take chances. And that's why Netflix and Hulu and Amazon are doing what they're doing and getting success, is because they will take the chances that Hollywood no longer will.
Yeah.
For more on this Galactic Network podcast, go to gncast.com. That's GNCASTS.com.